gentlemen, welcome to Before the Bell, brought to you by Troy's Roofing and Construction in partnership with Sports Combat News. My name is Brian and I am your host, and today on the show we have an amateur heavyweight fighter who has an upcoming fight on January 26th for the Elite One MMA Bitter Rivals card at Casino here in Moncton, New Brunswick. Please welcome Joe Pilmer. Joe, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me.
So, Joe, you have a record of 1-1. Your last fight was a victory over Max Busk, and you won that in the second round by TKO, I believe.
Yes, sir.
So, in that second fight, so your first fight was a loss to Nick Coombs, who you will be fighting on January 26th, which was your debut. After you made your debut, you took a loss. How did you bounce back from that and then enter the ring or enter the octagon again that second time around against Max and then take that victory?
Just kind of lit a fire under me. It changed some of the ways that I was training. I was maybe not focusing enough on really hard sparring and things of that nature, which I added into my second camp.
Yeah, and and in that first fight against Nick, you're a great fighter. You lay it all on the line, and you can see that you have some great striking in you. When it comes to your training camp, what is your focus, or do you have what is your main focus in training camp, I guess?
It's just a mix of everything. My week's split up between wrestling, kickboxing, boxing, and of course Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is normally my main focus, and strength and conditioning, obviously.
Awesome. So you're a bit of obviously a well-rounded game.
Yeah.
So you fight out of St. John, New Brunswick, and your gym is MXT. And so do you train all in St. John, or do you travel around for your camps?
No, I travel. I go to Quispamsis, KB, for kickboxing with Brian Masrol at TNT Kickboxing. Then I train at MXT in St. John. I train at Fort Fitness and Athletics in Rosse for my strength and conditioning, and I go to Fredericton to train with Clint Kingsbury for wrestling.
So all over the place here in New Brunswick, which is awesome. You get a variety, obviously, of training, and you get to train in different locations. So being a heavyweight, Joe, being a heavyweight, what does that look like as weight cut comes around for fights? I've talked to featherweights, I talked to middleweights, and they talk about having to cut weight. But does heavyweight have a range, and do you have to cut weight being a heavyweight?
I don't personally. I normally walk around between 240 to 255. Right now I'm at the start of camp. I'm a little over 255, but I haven't checked my weight since training camp started, but I'm down quite a bit from just looking at myself. I've never had to cut weight. I normally walk into a fight at 240.
So do you think that's an advantage as a fighter, that you can walk around your normal weight, you train, and you show up to your weigh-ins, and it's just a normal day for you? Do you think that's an advantage for you?
Oh, 100%. I see poor guys that I'm training with, and they're killing themselves to make weight, and I can just walk around and eat a bag of popcorn and have a beer if I'm kind of stressed out, so that sort of thing.
So really an advantage. Let's talk about the Nick Coombs fight, because this is actually, for those who don't know, this is your second fight with Nick. Your first fight was your debut, which you did lose. We'll talk about that in a second. And this is obviously your second go at it with Nick. In your first fight, let's talk about it. It was late on the line, went to judges' decision, and you lost. Was that a surprise to you and your coaches? Because I felt like I was there for that fight, and there was a bit of a buzz in the room that maybe that was a surprise to most.
Yeah, listen, man. I lost the fight, so it doesn't matter really what I say. If I go around saying it should have been this, it should have been that, I just look like an idiot. To me, if I should have done more to win, if that was the case. I think I controlled a lot of the fight with my grappling up against the cage. I never did get a takedown. The first round, I've watched the fight over. First round, he never threw a punch that landed, and I just controlled the first round. Second round, I think, was throw up in the air, and the third round was obviously his. So it all depends on what the judges were looking at, and I have no ill will towards any of it. It is what it is. Just like
It
what the big guy says there. Don't let it go to the judges. So
Right. So obviously going into this fight is a goal not to go to the judges. So what are you going to try to do differently going in against Nick for this second go around? Differently, knowing that you've been in there with him before, with maybe a different game plan. So is there something that you're going to try to do differently?
who knows? Could be a big mystery.
You can't let go too many secrets, right?
No, of course not. I'm such a magician in there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So I guess we'll leave it as a mystery, and we'll see what happens on the 26th when you and Nick face off for that second go around. And obviously, hopefully, we don't let it go to the judges. I know it's going to be a battle in there. The first time was a battle in the first place, and I can only imagine what this second time will bring. So Joe, let's talk a little bit about your history in MMA. This is only your third fight as an amateur in mixed martial arts. What got you into the sport in the first place?
I've been training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu since 2011 with John Kelly, and you just see guys come in and they're getting ready for fight camps, and I've been fairly successful in grappling in the Maritimes. Not so much international. I got my ass really kicked in California last year, but in grappling competition, I've normally done quite well, and it was just something different. That's why I took the first fight. I just wanted something different, and then when I lost, I don't do well with that, so I had to do it again, and then obviously you got to do it again. It's just like people say you get tattoos, and you say you only get one. Well, you keep getting more. You know what I mean?
You're addicted to the fight game now.
Yeah, much of the chagrin of my fiance and my mother and my family and all that stuff, but I enjoy it.
And that's what matters, right? Is that you enjoy it, and it's obviously something that you are passionate about. So you've been training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a while. Did you compete? And you say you went to California for some grappling tournaments there. Is that something that was your main focus for a while, just getting into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Oh, 100%, man. It's my first love for martial arts. That's all I did for the longest time, and then I started doing kickboxing and boxing leading up to the first MMA fight I had, and but still, like throughout the year, I think I didn't do a lot of tournaments this year, but normally I'm doing 5 to 6 tournaments per year. I think I've done 4 this year, but I'm real big on jiu-jitsu tournaments, especially local. It's good. It gets a lot of guys out. Yeah, and I just love it.
And it keeps you active, right? There's in the Maritimes not a lot of MMA local cards for you to get on. This is obviously something to keep you active. Is it your goal to be on cards outside of the Maritimes, or what would be your goal if you would tell me for MMA?
For MMA,
Yeah.
my goal. Well, Nick Coombs fight's coming up. I'd be very happy to win that fight. After that, I can't really say. I don't know. I'm getting married in July. I'm not saying that's going to make me settle down or anything, but who knows what's going to happen down the line. If I was off weight title shot, that would 100% be in my wheelhouse. I'd love to do that. Whether I've talked to guys in Montreal. They have some cards, but I don't know about them. They wear shin pads and stuff, which is kind of different for me. But yeah, that's about it. And then who knows how many more I'm going to do. And then after I'm done, my main focus will 100% be going back to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and hopefully do more international competition.
So really taking it kind of fight by fight, and if someone comes knocking at the door to offer you something, a heavyweight title shot, who knows,
Yeah.
whoever might come calling, right? That's kind of where you're putting it at, which I think is great for any athlete. You're kind of leaving the door open. Family first, obviously, but who knows where this might lead. So Joe, here in the Maritimes, we put a lot of focus on local athletes. In St. John, have you noticed a focus on local athletes, or is that something that you're trying to make awareness in your city?
Just local MMA fighters?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there's quite a few of us now. Well, obviously the main one's Christian Savoy. He's been around for, he's the main event of this card. He's like it'd be great to see him move on to the UFC. It'd be great if the whole city could get behind him. Like Ryan Jimmo was from here. That was a huge feather in St. John's cap. To me, I was proud seeing him in the UFC. You know what I mean? Seeing a
yeah.
guy like that in the UFC, and I think Christian has all the skills to get there as well. But there's not a lot of pros from St. John that are still active, as far as I can tell. But I think Gary Brown's fighting. He's a pro.
Yeah.
He'll be on the card that night. But a lot of the amateur guys, I think you'll see quite a bit out of them. And
So
then who knows if they move on.
right, and that is true. So let's talk about moving on from amateur to pro. And you talked, obviously, you talked a little bit about what your next steps would be or what your focus might be later on. But what is that something that that amateur to pro status, is that something that you can decide on your own, or is that something that has to be given to you, if you will?
No, 100%. You can do whatever you want. If I after this fight, if I want to go pro, but that's it's a big responsibility to yourself to realize where you're at and what you want to do. I'm 28 years old. I have a full-time job. I have a fiance. I have a mortgage. You know what I mean? Do I want to mess that up? Going pro, maybe. Not saying that it's obviously harder than amateur. It's 5-minute rounds. It's elbows, knees to head, all that fun stuff. But I don't ever want to do something half of what I can do. So if I like with the amount of work I'm putting in now for an amateur fight, in my head, I have to double that in order to be a pro. Do I have the time to do that? I'm not sure. But for right now, I'm just going to stick with where I'm at, and then we'll assess things as things come.
And you work a full-time job. And so how do you find the balance between working and your training camp? Is that, do you train in the morning, work during the day, and then train again at night, or how does that work in your schedule?
That's how today's working. I went in for strength and conditioning this morning, and then actually our head instructor from Brazil is down, Max Trombini. He's the MXT and MXT, and he's here for 4 days, so I'm definitely getting some training tonight with him while I can.
I think that's awesome, and I truly respect athletes who take the time. You work a day job and you're training for this upcoming card, so I truly respect that, and your ability to manage time as well as your health in doing that. So we talk about being a heavyweight, not much weight cut, but do you, even though you don't have to cut weight, put yourself on a bit of a meal plan to make sure that you're following a healthy eating habit? I know we joked around grabbing a beer whenever you wanted to or some popcorn, but do you, even though you're a heavyweight, still kind of put yourself on a regimen?
Oh, 100%. I stick to fairly clean. Obviously, I have a cheat day, probably about once a week. I stay away from alcohol. I was sponsored by Nourish New Brunswick, which is an awesome company in St. John. They do they do Christian's meal plan as well. I'm not doing that this camp. I'm just going to see if I can do it on my own. But if anyone in St. John ever wants awesome healthy meals, you should look up Nourish New Brunswick. They're really good. But myself, I stick to very clean. Normally my day consists of eggs, greens, chicken, beef. That's about it.
You try to eat healthy as is, to keep up with the athletic work.
Yeah, like the biggest thing for me is I like to have a few drinks with the boys, and it sucks around the holidays not being able to, but it's worth it in the end.
Right.
And that's the biggest. Really, that's probably besides the up tempo of my workouts. The lack of alcohol is what normally leans me out pretty good.
So you talked a little bit about a past sponsor. Are there any sponsors that you want to give a shout out to?
My union, Local 18, Outside Workers, City of St. John. Those guys have sponsored me for all of my fights. A lot of some grappling tournaments as well. They've been nothing but supportive of my career, and thank you to those guys from the bottom of my heart. And my newest sponsor is Rob LeBlanc's. It's a diesel, the Double D Construction, I believe is what it's called, and he's awesome. He's a great guy, and I really appreciate him sponsor me. He trains jiu-jitsu with me, and I really appreciate the sponsor from him.
That's awesome. And Joe, I appreciate you taking the time today.
District Diesel is the name.
District Diesel.
Or Diesel District. Rob LeBlanc's Diesel District. I'm really sorry, Rob.
Hopefully he continues to support you after this.
I hope so. I already put the money in the bank, so.
Well, Joe, I appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything else you want to add before we take off?
I just want to thank all my training partners. Sometimes they don't get a lot of the credit that they deserve. Like if you don't have good training partners, then you're not going to get anything in this game. So I just want to, and my coaches. So while I have you here, I just want to thank John Kelly, of course, my longtime jiu-jitsu coach and head coach, Clint Kingsbury, my wrestling coach, Brian Masrell, my kickboxing coach, and also my main sparring partner, and Tom Splain, my boxing coach, who has really tightened up a lot of my game. And he's a longtime friend of mine and helped me out tremendously. And Matt Forgey at 4 Fitness and Athletics. He honestly, if it wasn't for Matt Forgey fixing me up, my back and neck were so messed up. He fixed everything, and now I'm completely pain-free. So those are the guys I want to thank a lot.
That's awesome. And I'm glad to hear, that, you're healthy and 100% and ready to go for this January 26th fight as your rematch against Nick Coombs.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, he fixed me long before I got into MMA, but I feel great. Man, it's going to be a show.
So, Joe, again, we thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show here today. And if you haven't already guessed it, we need to buy our tickets for this January 26th Elite One MMA Bitter Rivals card at the casino here in Moncton, New Brunswick, where Joe Pilmer will take on Nick Coombs as a rematch. And hopefully it goes the way Joe talks, and we'll find out this mystery that he talks about here in the Octagon. We also like to thank Troy's Roofing and Construction for making this interview possible. Troy's Roofing and Construction, where the customer comes first and they do the job right the first time. Call Troy at 506-693-TROY. Joe, once again, we thank you so much for being on the show, and I look forward to seeing you in the Octagon on January 26th for the Elite One MMA Bitter Rivals card.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for having me, man. We'll see you in the cage. I'll be looking forward to hearing you yell my name.